All right, so we're going to be talking about interest today. Do any of you know what interest is, like in terms of a bank account? I see a couple nods. Do any of you know that, do any of you have bank accounts that you know of? And then when you earn interest, okay, there's two different ways that can be interpreted. So if you have a savings account, then you earn interest and the bank gives you money for keeping it there. Okay, so it's often a low percentage. But if you need to borrow money from the bank, they also charge you interest. So if you have to borrow money, they'll say, yeah, I'll give you, $200,000 to buy a house, but I'm going to charge you a percent of that to pay it back since you don't have all that money right now. Okay, so it's the amount of money charged for borrowing money. Okay, or the amount of money earned when you're saving or investing. Okay, so it's either you're earning interest or the bank is earning interest. Now, another new word is principal. It is spelled just like the principal of a school, but it is different. Okay, principal is the amount that you borrowed or invested. Okay, so principal is the amount that you put into the account. Okay, principal is the amount borrowed or invested. And then we're going to learn today about something called simple interest. And simple interest is paid only on the principal. That is why we have the formula, but that's not something that you have to know off the top of your head, okay? So we're going to write the formula here that we're using today. So it's a capital I. Will you write that with me? And then equals, and then it's a capital P. And P stands for, what do you think? Yeah, the principal. Okay, so P is that initial amount. We're going to multiply that by R. Okay? And then we're going to multiply that by T.
So we do a math, or we just calculate the letters?
Math actually has a lot of letters in it. And the higher up in math you go, the more letters you have. So as you're writing out these variables, I want you to think about whenever you have T in an equation, because you use this in science too, T stands for what? Time, okay? So T is the time, okay, in years. And let's put a happy cloud over here. This is our formula. Okay, so will you box that in or happy cloud, whichever you would like. Okay, because this is what we're going to use over and over today. Now the R, it is often the rate. So that's an equation we talked about before, like distance equals the rate times time. But remember, when you're doing a rate, okay, you have to convert it to a decimal. So the rate is a percent. Will you write that above the rate for me? You can just write the symbol, or if you'd rather write the word, you can. Is a percent written as a decimal. So that is similar to not only what we did yesterday, but what we were doing in 2.8. Okay? All right, so we're going to read this example, and then we're going to do one of our own. So if it says to find the simple interest, we're going to use this formula. So we're just going to label it simple interest. Simple interest. That's our simple interest formula. Okay, and then so make sure you're writing down what I write down, because remember I give you grades for your notes, and I've also been known to let you use some sheets on a quiz, so make sure you have all your information, okay? All right, so this one said find the simple interest paid annually. Do you guys know what annually means?
Who?
Annual.
Yeah, that's the one you get paid a month.
No, but you're,
Like that.
it's not the month.
Annually is
Year.
Yeah?
Year.
Yeah, good. Okay, so this just means yearly. Like, some people will say, oh, we have an annual, guys up here. Some people will say we have an annual, you know, family reunion or an annual 4th of July party. Yeah, yep. Okay, so find the simple interest paid. If it says annually, that means yearly. For 2 years. Gabriel, I need you up here. Okay, for 2 years on a $900 loan at 16% per year. Okay, so all I've done at this point is I just boxed in all of the numbers in the word problem. So if you're ever unsure what to do for a word problem, at the very least I want to see the numbers boxed in because that's what we're going to focus on. So what we have to do is we just have to figure out which number goes with which variable. So if the t is time, what's the time that I boxed in? 2 years, yep. So right above 2 years, we're just going to write t equals 2. Okay, now I told you the rate was a percent as a decimal. So the only percent we have boxed in is 16. How do we write 16 as a decimal? 16%, 0.16, great. Okay, so we're going to write r equals 0.16. And then there's only one more variable we have to plug in, and that's the principal. So the principal is how much you invested at the beginning, so it's going to be 900. Okay, so like I said, for this one, they did the plug-in for you. So it's 900 times 0.16 times 2. And then once you get your answer, you're going to write it with your dollar symbol. Okay, so you can write 288, or we talked about yesterday, when you have money, the 2 decimal places. If it's just a nice number like that, you can either write it as 288 or 288.00. Okay, either one is fine. All right, so now we're gonna do 2A. We're gonna do it over here because we're gonna give ourselves more room for 2B. All right, so you write 2A for me. All right, and I'm going to give you a few seconds. I just want you to box in all of the numbers in your story problem. So find the simple interest earned after 2 years on an investment of $3,000 at 4.5% interest earned annually. So all I want you to do is box those in for me, okay? Once you've boxed those in, you can write your equation. Okay, so Erica, can you give me one number that you boxed in? Great. Okay. So 2 years is the first one in your story problem. So let's write what that is equal to. So 2 is equal to, are we going to plug that in for P, R, or T? T. Awesome. Okay, and then Joey, will you give me another one? Great. Yep, 3,000. Okay, and then do you guys know what 3,000 is going to go in for? Yep, it's going to go in for the P. So that's how much you're investing. So we're going to put 3,000 in for P. Okay, and then Gabriel, what's the last number you boxed in? Yep, the 4.5%. And then can you tell me what that would be as a decimal? Yep, the decimal. So can you bump it back twice? That, so if you had 0.45, that would be 45%. So what do you need in between that? And a 0. Yep. So for 4.5%, right? This is 4%. Got to have that 0 there. And now all we have to do is plug that into our equation. All right. So the way that you can write that is 3,000 times 0.045 times 2. Okay, so you can just put them all in parentheses. Okay, so when you're writing it out, you do want that in parentheses. And then on your calculator, you can either put them in parentheses, like I did with this one, or you can also do 3,000 times 0.045 times 2. Okay, so we guys calculate that, and then we're going to write our answer as money. Okay, and then Brian, whenever you get that, will you tell me what you got? I said, when you calculate that, will you tell me what you got? Yeah. And then when you're writing it as money, just put your money symbol in front. And again, if it's a whole number, you can write it as 270, or you can write it as 270.00. Okay, great. Now, when you have formulas, okay, many times we plug things in and we calculate. Other times you're going to have to solve for one of the other variables, okay? So let's look at an example of that, and then we'll try it ourselves, okay? So for B, it says after 3 months. So if that's a number, I'm going to box it in. Okay, after 3 months, the simple interest earned annually on an investment of $7,000 was $63. Okay, what you have to find is the interest rate. So this is very similar to some of the story problems that we were doing. Okay, and then remember that when you are doing the time, so if the time is measured in years, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to convert this, okay? So will you guys either underline or highlight this? Okay, so T equals the time in years. So if they give you the time in months, how many months are in a year? 12 months. So if they give you the time in months, we're going to convert months to years. This is very similar to, remember when we had to convert decimals to fractions? And we had to find what place it was in? And we either put it over 10 or over 100 or over 1,000. This is very similar to this. All you have to do is put the number of months over 12. Okay, because there's 12 months in 1 year. So 12 never changes. Okay? So again, they plug this in for you. We're just going to write out what each variable is. So if it's 3 months, your T is 3 over 12. Okay, and then the investment was 7,000. That's what you're going to plug in for P. And now they give you a new money amount. This is the interest I. Okay, so when you plug this in, you are actually going to solve for R using strategies that we've already learned this year. Okay, so we're going to do this together for 2B. And I'm going to walk you through it, okay? So for 2B, we're going to box in, again, we're just going to box in the numbers as we read it. So when you're doing this on your own, like I'm reading, I would read this in my mind, I'm going to read it out loud to you. So it says the simple interest paid on a loan after 6 months. So I'm thinking, okay, 6 months is going to be the time. Okay, so 6 months is going to be part of the time. So it has to be 6 months over 12. Anytime you're converting months to years, you have to do 6 over 12. Okay, that's what we're going to plug in. So this is part of your time. And then it says the interest paid was 306. So let's go back to this first part. It says the simple interest paid. So if the simple interest is 306, the simple interest is I. So that's going to be 306. Okay, and then what's the last number they give you? 8. So the annual interest rate was 8%. So that's going to go in for R. And then how do we write 8% as a decimal? 0.08. And remember, you still have that percent key. So don't be shy to just use it and convert. Okay? Now it says find the principal. Principal is what variable? The P. So what we're going to do is we are going to solve for P. Okay, so we're going to write out our equation. I equals P R T. And then what I want you to do is I want you to use this to plug those in. We're just going to plug it into our equation. Okay, so what do we plug in for I? 306, good. Okay, so if I is 306, P, do I have anything labeled for P? Nope, that's because we're going to solve for P. Do I have anything labeled for R? Yep. R is 0.08. And then the time, 6/12. If any of you were looking at that and thinking, hey, I want to reduce that, you could, but you don't have to, okay? All right, so what we're going to do now is we have these two numbers. What do we have to do with those two numbers? Yeah, we're going to multiply them because they're right next to each other, right? So let's multiply. We're going to keep the 306 where it is. We're going to keep the P where it is. But we're going to multiply those two together, and we're going to write that here. So when you put that in your calculator, do you guys put it in with your parentheses like this? Or do you use your fraction key? Okay, because you can do both. So as a decimal, you would get 0.04. Okay, if you use your fraction key and you do 0.08 times, you did 6 ABC 12. Oh good, it gives that to you as a decimal again. Good, so you can choose which way you want to do that, okay? All right, now this is just like the word problems that I did with you earlier this week. Do you guys remember? Like we worked on some of those outside in the hall. And if you have something multiplied by this, how do you move it over? Yep, you have to divide. What are we going to divide by? Are we going to divide by the 306 or the 0.04? Or are we not sure? Yep, you always divide by what is by the variable. It's just this time instead of x, we're solving for p. Okay? Now, I tell you all the time that these cancel out, but this is what's happening. When you do 0.04 divided by 0.04, okay, on your calculator, you get a 1, right? So 1 times p is just p. So when I tell you that these cancel out, that means they divide to make 1. And anything times 1 is itself. Okay, now let's divide 306 by 0.04. Okay, so will you do that on your calculator and write down your final value? And you should get a nice number for this, okay? All right, what do we get? Yeah, nice, 7,650. Great. Okay, and then all we have to do is write that with our dollar symbol. Okay, so that is your value for P. Okay, and then yesterday on your Part B worksheet, I had you skip a few problems, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to have you do the 2.9, practice B. Okay, you're just going to do 4, 5, and 6, and I'm going to come around and check your other ones. Okay?